Imagine that you were given a dream job, and this dream job is very fulfilling and full of perks and leads to other dream opportunities. But the one thing about this dream job is that you can never talk about your dream job. It's the fight club of dream jobs. Tamara Beatty has been a voice coach consultant on NBC's The Voice for over 20 seasons, as well as other similar shows like Fox's The Masked Singer, I Can See Your Voice, and most recently Apple TV's My Kind of Country. But you never see her. Her work is always off camera. And fortunately, she possesses a charming humility uniquely suited for never talking about the shows, how they work, what the celebrities are like, or what you missed behind the scenes. In fact, Tamara has worked with all kinds of celebrity acts, touring and chart-topping singers, and none of them make their way onto her resume or bio or in casual conversation. She has impacted hundreds of singers through workshops and lessons, worked with major recording artists for vocal arranging and emergency tour support, and developed her own coaching platform called VoiceFit to help reach more singers through an app available soon in 2025. This is almost famous enough. My name is Glen Erickson. Thank you for spending your time with us. This is Tamara Beatty. It's great. It's great.
Awesome.
So, I mean, first and foremost, Tamara, we already said, like, it's great to see you. It's been a really long time.
It's been a really long time.
Yeah. I can't remember the last, I mean, this isn't technically face-to-face, but I can't even remember exactly the last face-to-face. So, I mean, the first great thing is you haven't changed a bit, which,
Well, I don't know, but I appreciate that. I would say the
I
same
don't know.
about you.
You look like we've known each other 10 years now, and you look exactly how I expected from meeting you 10
Oh,
years
well, that's
ago.
great.
So,
Maybe we shouldn't meet in person just in case that's not so.
don't ruin it.
Yeah, right.
That's completely fair. So where are you sitting right now?
I am sitting in my little place in a loft in upstate New York.
Okay. And for a Canadian boy like me who doesn't pay enough attention, when someone says upstate New York, what does that actually mean compared to New York, New York?
Okay, I have been learning this. Maybe I should have said central New York, really, because I guess, there's New York City. By the way, I'm really bad at geography, but I think I got this one. So we've got New York City down south, basically, and that's like Manhattan, the boroughs, all those sorts of things. And then north is upstate, and we're even more north, central New York. So it's about 2.5 hours to Canada. So it's not too far south from the border.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So thank you so much, by the way, for joining me and for doing this with me. Like, so I already said, like, I met you 10 years ago, through a function, an event thing where obviously you were showing up to be a voice coach. And since that time, I have said at many times in many different places, I think everybody should have a moment with Tamara Beatty.
Oh,
And that,
thank you.
no, I sincerely mean it. I think that what you do and the impact you have and all of that, I've just seen it in lots of different situations. And I think it's amazing. And I've always like that every artist should have an opportunity in particular to meet you, spend time with you. I mean, I don't have personal experience with a bunch of other voice or performance coaches. So,
Right.
maybe you're sitting there saying, well, Glenn's only seen one. There's like lots of good ones out there. But I feel like I and others that I know have, struck it rich and hit gold by you being the first vocal and performance coaches that kind of really wove their way into our life. So
Thank you.
there's like so many things I could talk to you about. A, because we haven't talked in a really long time. I feel like there's so many things we could talk about. B, like just the way that I feel like there's a lot of value in telling stories, which is why I'm doing this, could probably go a lot of directions. So I just want you to know I don't have some like particular set output that I'm going to try to get out of it, which even when we were exchanging questions outside of this, I appreciate your level of preparation. So let me start here with this. So even in trying to think about what your title was, I most often just think of you as a voice and performance coach, and I've known you for that. I think you got this pretty long and impressive list of like credits and things that you've worked for or been a part of. And I think what makes it the hardest for me and maybe others is that the fact that you're associated with the television show called The Voice, which then means not to use the word voice coach because it's sort of redundant
Right.
and the branding versus what you do, and that they call the people on the show a coach. So both of those words all of a sudden feel like off limits and change it. But at your core, who you are outside of that part of what you do for portions of the year, is that still how you define yourself when you go out, if you do speaking engagements, when you do workshops or lessons or any of that kind of stuff? Is it still voice and performance coach, or has that evolved?
I think I would still say voice and performance coach or vocal and performance coach. I guess at the heart of it, like there's so many different types of vocal coaches. There are people who they vocal arrange and they're really amazing at that. Other people work more with, I guess, people who are interested in with choirs and things like that. So we've got that sort of lane. People who do, say, weekly lessons and they see somebody all the time and they're helping with development. And for me, I've kind of landed, a long time ago now, but in the lane of industry voice coach,
Mm,
basically. So
mhm.
just working with people in the industry, whether they're on tour or they are on television shows or they're doing something kind of that puts a little extra demand either on the body or the voice or the mind. And that's sort of the way that I look at it because there are so many different types of
Mhm.
coaches. But yes, I would say voice and performance coach. Yeah.
Well, that's a great point, and I wanna earmark that because I think what I wanna get to is sort of how you landed where you landed, and then what that means, and I think talking about what the other things are is really sort of great to frame that and in the way that people would know or understand what or how coaching happens and where it happens. So, I wanna jump all the way back to you're a kid growing up in Canada,
Yeah.
Calgary, and obviously you were exposed to music and you latched on at a pretty young age, right? And I mean, a lot of us, you hear this story all the time, right? I began singing when I was old enough to make a sound or something like that. So a lot of people have that in their history, and you latched on and you started developing it at a pretty young age. But a lot of people, that path is a typical path towards I'm trying to be some version of a singer.
Yeah.
And it very quickly became a vocal coach for you. And I'm really interested in the young age in which that happened and sort of where those first opportunities to even do that and how that happens for a young person and a young person in Canada, right? Not terribly close or connected
No.
to
Very
to the
small
industry,
town. Yeah.
but very far from the industry too. So
Yes.
could you sort of like paint a little picture about how that developed for you?
Sure. So when I was younger, I don't think I ever immediately said, I'm going to be a singer or I'm going to be a coach. I was just sort of doing life and that involved mostly sports, I would say, when I was younger. For fun, I loved sports. So it kind of started off there. And it wasn't until I think it was in grade 4 where my dad, he thought that I made too many mouth sounds. Like I would try and make car sounds and, make all sorts of sounds of any type. And then they said, well, would you like to take singing lessons? And I was like, sure. I never even knew about it. I never even heard about it. I hadn't thought of myself as a singer or anything like that. So I took a bus, from the school I was at to another little town that had a even smaller town than I was from.
Mm.
And I just took this weekly lesson, and my teacher was really just cool. She was just this really nice lady who did lessons in her home, and she was just very encouraging for me. And it was her who, when I was 16, she said that it was time for me to start teaching. So
Mm.
that was actually really cool. It wasn't like I had this idea. She came to me with
So was she thinking you should start teaching in your home too, and not necessarily telling you to go be an international industry coach?
that.
Or what was the I'm being a little tongue in cheek, but what was sort of the the thing that she saw and that you know that you've sort of taken from that?
I don't know what she saw. I have seen her like, I don't know, probably 12 years ago. I got to see her again.
Mm,
And I had like this little event that they were honoring me for something. And I invited her because I was thinking, she's really the one who, I don't know, maybe I would have still become that, but I really value that she did see something in me that could amount to being a coach. And I just took it and ran basically. So I started up my little kind of coaching business from my home. I had no idea about the industry. I still, you know, it's not like I was trying to be a pop singer even when I was younger. I was doing Italian arias and all
mm.
sorts of different languages. And I just really enjoyed that. And I just looked, forward to the recitals that she held all the time. And that was basically it. I was very into sports. So sports
Mm.
was my main thing growing up. I ended up kind of training with a few different coaches, and that was sort of my main focus. But singing along the way was something that, I went to weekly and I just loved.
And what was the sports? What were you pursuing?
So it was really track and field was the main one. I mean, I
Okay.
did volleyball, but I would say track and field was where I kind of got the farthest and felt like it was like my sport. So I did like 400 hurdles. I did the 400, but I wasn't as good at the 400. I more excelled at the hurdles and triple
Mhm.
jump. Those were kind of my big events.
And so if you you said you sort of excelled to the level where you're getting personal coaching.
Well, yeah. So basically, like in Canada, there's your little teams, and then you go to these meets, and then you can qualify for different things. And so, I qualified for nationals and then for worlds,
Mm,
and I was
mm.
kind of just in that little world
Yeah.
of going to track
And there,
meets all of
yeah.
the time.
And there's a lot of coaching built in for that. I just ask because I know like this is a big part of how you've constructed kind of the way you teach, right?
I
With
think it's the biggest
yeah.
impact that I've had in order to bring over to my voice coaching. Like, I think I would have been a coach no matter what
Yeah.
kind of thing I was coaching. I do think I would have been a coach, and I just love the coach experience. I love being coached. I value that very much. I love the trusted relationship you have with somebody where you can say, okay, I trust you. Tell me what to do. And you
Mm,
can trust that they're not only going to give you the things to do, but also try and give it to you in a way which feeds your motivation and doesn't deter you. And so it's like that strategy behind it and, helping somebody have a really strong mindset. Because a lot of coaching at an industry level is, you know, really mostly requires having, the people that you work with be able to withstand a lot of demands, even mental and physical demands, not just singing demands. So that is kind of where I feel like the heart of my coaching comes from is literally my sports coaching.
and did you put that together when you started to see that at that level, or had you started to make connections way earlier in your own development of your coaching style?
I did not realize it was kind of the main thing that propelled, I guess, was the motor behind my coaching until I
Mhm.
started working on The Voice because I realized that when you're working on the show, it's like this perfect blend of voice coaching, like actually helping somebody sing, but also this kind of high performance competition, being able
Mhm.
to, bring out their best, elicit their best performance, before a very big opportunity and the mindset that comes with that and all the strategy. So I was like, oh, wow, like I love this. I was thinking about how can I periodize people's voices to peak at a certain time because that's how my training was. I always made sure that people could peak at the moment they needed to peak. So I
Mhm.
started being really strategic about, giving people exercises and the work that I would do with them to help them peak on the day of their big performance, essentially.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask sort of the ignorant question that I think maybe a lot of people listening would ask. It doesn't seem like you quote unquote go to school for a career as a vocal coach. And there's a lot of them out there. And if you were to like go and Google who the top voice coaches in the industry are, right? Like you'd get a pretty long list of a lot of people and some who are maybe more well-known names or something, but they all have like gone through this thing. So, and is everybody developing their own method and style in a silo, or how does having a career as long as yours, right, and sort of having a shoulder to shoulder with all these peers, how is everybody developing a career as a vocal coach and your own style and techniques and all of that?
Oh, that's a great question. No one has ever asked me that. Definitely, there hasn't been programs for becoming a vocal coach. I'm I'm sure that there are like programs. There are definitely things for like vocal pedagogy to understand, like courses where you're understanding the
Mhm.
pedagogy, the anatomy, and all those sorts of things. And then there's these side courses that people have put on to help with like vocal rehabilitation, restoration, and things like that. But a lot of it is experience based, and then sometimes you get thrown in a situation, and then you kind of go from there. But
Mhm.
essentially, to me, there's the coaching element and then there's the content. So the being a good coach is that's my most important thing that I care about is being somebody who can listen and collaborate and try and do things for the best benefit of whoever I'm working with. It's one thing to see somebody and go, okay, they need this, 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 and this, and I'm going to tell them all those things that they need. And then, looking at the situation and going, well, what's the one thing that we could do that will take them to where they need to go? And I try and do that so that people aren't overwhelmed and that we've got a real clear kind of path forward and that people see gains right away. So to me, it's like the coaching end. So that I didn't like learn anywhere. It was just, I think it was part of my upbringing. And I have like a whole family of educators. And I did do a degree in education, although I just feel like it was something in me maybe from a young age. But the content itself, there's lots of places you can get information, but I think it's most important when you're using that. And so people can develop their own methods, but I think a lot of people just get told something and then they regurgitate it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think it's very important to have that experience and to work with a lot of different types of voices so you know
Mhm.
what things work for different people and what things do not.
Yeah. Okay. So
Did I
so
answer
you
that?
yeah, you want answered it beautifully, of course, that's great. Like, I recognize that there's a lot of ambiguity to that anyhow, right? I fully understand that. I think that there's so many uh, aspects in this vertical of pursuing a life in music, whether it be as the artist
Yeah,
itself or you end up somewhat adjacent in the industry of most people all relate to there was nowhere to go to school for this, right? Like my friends who are really great promoters, they were in bands for a while, started
right.
to see how the business runs. And then when they stopped being in a band but didn't want to be out of music, that's the thing that made sense to them. And they started to apply what they knew. So it's everything feels on the job. So I totally get that. And I think there's just a curiosity about how the on the job part develops for you, right? That's a little bit different. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I started when I was 16, like I said, and I had my own little studio and I kind of learned like that. And then when I think it was 18 or 19, I ended up in Maui actually, because my sister lived there. And trying to make this story short, I would say that I had this book from a voice coach that my dad had purchased for me, and somebody in Maui was, saying that they were teaching this method. And so I ended up going to them. And long story short, I ended up finding myself to the main teacher, who was Seth Riggs, actually.
Mm.
Um,
He's on
and
the
so,
list if you Google people.
yes, if you Google people,
For
and so
sure.
are a lot of people who tout themselves as the best. they're,
I
they're,
believe
they're,
it.
they're there too, but that doesn't mean that they're
Yeah.
not awesome. But yeah, and so he is obviously a very influential kind of a
Mm.
coach. And, I definitely have enjoyed watching him coach and trying to be delicate here because what's really weird about vocal coaching is it's a very competitive type of a world, which is so
Mm.
odd. It's a lot of coaches might feel, oh, I have all the answers and your answers are wrong or whatever. But
Mm,
The truth is, it's the artist who has all the answers.
mm,
And to me, a good coaching is when you can unlock the answers within the artist
mm.
right there. So it's really not about having all of the answers and descending those answers upon people. It's just about like looking and listening and going, this is what we can do. And sure, there's methods and tactics to go about it. But to me, they are not the supreme focus, and no particular method has ever been a supreme focus to me. In fact, I've tried very hard not to get too involved in too many methods because I want to really know what I think inside.
So when I said at the beginning, like, I would love for everybody, and I've always felt like I think every artist should be able to have time with you. It comes from the fact that I got to watch you firsthand in a number of circumstances, right? And I got to watch you in that weird peak performance project boot camp, which I know people listening won't understand, but we had a development program, and the focal point of this program was like a boot camp. It wasn't a boot camp because it was the most beautiful camp in
It
Canada,
was
probably
awesome.
on this lake. It was the most gorgeous place in interior BC. And it was wonderful, but it was full of isolation. There was bad Wi-Fi, and people were, spending long hours in the day going through development classes, sessions, workshops, singing, writing, performing, the whole work. So,
Mhm.
and and for some strange reason, the original organizers had set up when every artist that got into this thing would do their performance on their night, like 3 or 4 a night. We would like American Idol, like Simon Cowell them,
I
and they
know.
panel. And you got introduced to this to be part of this panel, which felt like so now I know you. And I'm like, that's so counter to your personality to be put up there as if you're going to critique these people you don't even know after 3 songs.
You know what was
So
so weird?
I
Can I just say something?
yeah, yeah.
You know what was so weird to me is we started seeing all of these people go, and then we would speak after, and I realized after, and in their, expressions that they did not know that was happening or expect it to happen. And that's
Mhm.
when I was like, "Oh, man," because I've had that happen to me before where you're doing something, and then all of a sudden someone critiques you, like, out of the blue, and you're like, What's going on?" Like, and so
And
I'm
you in real
very.
time knew what was happening, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You
So,
could see
like,
it?
I was watching that going, "Oh my gosh." So I tried myself to, I had been in those shoes, and you don't
Yeah,
wanna be defensive to the information coming towards you, like, you wanna be able to receive it.
yeah.
But anyways, I thought that was just like a little funny little side that happened. I was
What
like, "Oh, no."
well, I can expand this side. I mean, backstory for anyone listening, even further than what we already said. So there's the radio stations created this program, a development program, but it was slash contest because it was driven by radio funded money that they had to contribute when they open a new station in Canada over a 7-year period. And someone had this great idea to work with them to create a development program for artists. So what satisfies radio is having a contest with a big prize at the end because it's easier to sell that on the air.
Uh,
And the other half of the money, we were able to fashion a development program for artists. So very few highly competitive to get in, high odds then of being able to win a lot of money. And I've already interviewed Jared of the Royal Foundry, who, if you remember
yeah,
them, they
totally.
got shredded their first year and then came back wonderfully and won the
And
second
one,
prize,
yeah.
75K the second time. But and so
Shredded.
this performance, yeah, they did. And so, okay, so the funny backstory to me, even about this Simon Cowling moment, because you were on a panel with Ryan Goulemond of Mother Mother and
Yes.
somebody else from the industry. I think someone from Warner or Universal
There was 4 of
was
us at the
there.
beginning, and
Yeah,
yes.
some industry people.
Yeah.
But so the funny part to me, I'm going to give you, I can't remember if I told you the story, but here's my funny perspective. 2014, this is when I met you, right? So
Yeah.
we meet in the airport at Kelowna where we're getting picked up to get driven into interior British Columbia to this
Oh,
beautiful camp,
right, because
right?
we were in the van.
And I only knew who you were as somebody because I was a person, I was on the board that ran the whole thing, right? So, and then I
Right.
was also doing sessions on social media training. So, but we're in the van. I arrive in Kelowna. We get picked up. I don't remember even who was driving, who picked us up. But needless to say, here's the funny thing. So it's going to speak
Oh, no,
to
what is it?
some Well, it's gonna embarrass me because,
Oh,
I mean, it speaks to very typical sexism in the industry without even thinking about it, the way we put labels or expectations on some people. So the funny, but it's humorous, I can laugh at myself now. You were dressed so like you were so normal is the
I was
easiest way to
gonna say,
put it,
I don't
right?
think yeah.
You were wearing like shorts and a t-shirt with no bright flashy colors. Your hair was probably pulled up. Like you looked like you could have been a mom, or you could have been a kindergarten teacher. You could have been like all kinds of
Sure.
things. You could have been an office worker. You could have been just looked like you were just on your off day is what it really looked like.
Yeah.
Right. So very unbecoming. And then we had to stop. And I only bring up how you look, sorry, not to be like a rude, but it plays into the story of how easily we create assumptions or expectations when we see people, and especially in this industry towards women, which is obviously completely unfair. Um, and then we stop on the way because you had to get straws, but a particular kind of straw of these very small, like coffee type.
All the
And
singers know about
and
straws and
I know they do.
semi-occlusion
I'm very
now, but back
yeah.
then they didn't.
They didn't, and so we had to find this very particular in this industrial part of Kelowna and get these straws.
Forgot
And
about
I just remember, like, it wasn't a problem, but I'm like, this is kind of weird. And then we get to Cologne, we get to the camp, and normal things happen and supper and all this kind of stuff. And then we come back, and it's first night of performances.
yeah.
And then you come back, and you've gotten dressed for the occasion, you've done your hair, all this kind of stuff. You come back, you're a dynamic, very outgoing and charismatic, very attractive person. You came back and just changed the temperature of the room, at first in the wrong way. I'm saying this to like at my own shame and everyone else's, which is like, oh, now she look, you know what I mean? Like, did we like she looks like something else than what we
Oh,
probably thought you
this is
were,
all
which is,
news.
I know, that's why I'm telling you, I'm being transparent about it, even though it makes me look like an ass, but it happened. And then someone sang, I don't know if you remember, he was a solo artist,
Yes,
he
I do.
looped, and then you stood up and you started in a very kind but direct way, start talking about to his performance more than his vocal. And you were naming the loop station that he was using and the particular nuances of it. And so you had this technical expertise immediately. You spoke intelligently to how it wove into his ability to perform and not get distracted with what he was doing, which was taking away from his vocal, and you were interpreting what you thought he was trying to do but missing. Anyhow, you spoke with such an incredible intelligence, confidence, experience. And I think it was that it's a beautiful moment because it made people like me all of a sudden be like, oh, I'm such a typical idiot in this
Mm,
industry
mm.
of somebody who has every right to be here. It has nothing to do with how she looks. It has nothing to do with any of that kind of stuff. It has everything to do with the fact that you have something unique and special to offer. And you just stood up to a microphone in real time, as you just described on your own perspective, realized how weird and awkward this stupid thing was, and that it was happening from the person on stage. But you delivered it, and it was so impactful to so many people. That's my sidebar to that whole story about you. Um, so I'm sure you've probably encountered that a lot in the industry from different places or time to time. But yeah, I always was so impressed. So those moments for me, Tamara, as well as I've seen you do workshops, right? They would bring you through and do workshops, and artists were invited to these workshops, like live in a back room of a bar, and people would have to step up and volunteer to sing, and then you would live coach with them,
That's
or
my
the Long and
favorite, yeah.
McQuaid. Yeah, or the Long and McQuaid ones. So the reason I bring all of this up is to say what I've seen you in these different rooms with people, either performance or vocal coaching. And you had tipped on previously, just this sense that you would have about things, or you would pick up on. And I'm wondering how much you've reflected or thought about your own personal empathetic skill. Is that what helps you draw things out of people? Because what I've seen that's so special about you is that it's not technique. You were talking about technique and these things before, but what you've developed, because there's no school for it, is this ability to see something beyond just what someone's technically doing. It just, how did that come about for you? Where did you start to tap in? When did you first see that validation and these results come out that were something special?
Well, I don't know that I had any particular moment, but I can say that being seen, feeling like someone has seen me is like the most wonderful, heartwarming, special thing. And that's probably the most important thing for me when I'm working with someone is that they are feeling seen, and we
Mm,
go from there. That's where we start. Because if we can start there, then we can always get to the next level together really well. I know when I was younger, when I was 16, I had one of my little clients. She's just a young girl, and I got to do a TEDx talk. I have a whole story about that whole thing, but we'll put that on the side and say that I told this story in there, which was, I had this young girl, and I felt like she, wasn't singing strong. And so I used all the techniques that I knew, how to project more and articulate and all those sorts of things. But I remember feeling like there was something blocking her, like something muting her voice. And I found out later that her father had been abusing her. And I had, even I was only 16, I remember thinking, I'm going to help this girl know and find her voice. And my mom kind of mentioned that to me. She said, well, help her find her voice. And I learned that it was really not anything to do with technique, although those things are very helpful. It was something else behind there. And so I guess from that point, I knew that the voice was a window into something so much more. And that window has always interested me. And I've always felt like it was a sacred window. And it's something that when I'm working with somebody, I feel like they're allowing me, whether they know it or not,
mm,
to see something inside of them. And that space, I guess, is the space we're talking about. And to me, it's this sacred space. So I did notice
yeah.
that like a long time ago, but it's not like every session is like this a deep thing, but it's more like knowing that we're all human, we're all people, we all want to be living a life that we want to live. And I feel like as singers, when someone comes to me to sing, I'm helping them live kind of a passion through in their life.
Mm,
And
yeah.
that gives me that opportunity to use that window, whether that's a deep moment or a fun moment or something, but it's, to get in and really help this person do and be something in life and step up and be themselves more potently.
Mm.
Like that's what I love.
Well, I mean, because I've seen you literally do this, and I remember one distinctly here in Edmonton, actually. Again, it was one of these workshops I think you were brought in and sponsored, and different artists had to come in to watch, but volunteer to go up. So this is so improvisational. And this is where I think any of us, like if any of us love acting, you get floored when you go to improv and see that skill that somebody can, in a moment, right, just put together so many things and read the room and the people they're with and then have
Mhm.
this output. So that's what I think felt so magical. But I'm not trying to have hyperbole here, Tamara. Like almost every time I've seen you do this, I've felt emotional. That
Mhm.
that someone can connect so deeply to that, you know? And so what I'm curious about for you, because it's more than just the voice, but at the same time it is the voice. So what are you looking for in these i- frankly improvisational moments with somebody that you have to be looking for a key or an anchor or something or way in to understand or see that thing that's deeper? What are the signs for you?
Well, that's a great question. Am I looking for something? I'm not
Maybe you're not.
intentionally looking for something. I
Yeah, it
think
might be the wrong angle, but
I'm really listening. I think that's definitely.
mhm,
I'm really like I'm listening with my eyes and my ears and my if it kind of sounds weird, but my energy, just sort
mhm,
of watching and feeling and receiving. And then you just pick up
mhm,
things that um that are very special about somebody or that if they could turn the volume up on. And it's usually not the things that they think. It's we get told what we're great at often. Like someone says, "Oh, you're so good at that. I love it when you hit the high notes." And then that person develops an
mhm,
identity around I sing
mhm,
high notes. And then we start going down that route and there's nothing wrong with that, but it can really cast a shadow over all these other little nuances and things and cause us not to connect. And so if we can kind of set that aside and just focus in on one thing, and it doesn't even have to be a singing thing. Sometimes it
mhm,
really, really brings out somebody's magic, and that really excites me. I believe we all have, like, something magical in us, and if we just can allow the parts to come together, that
yeah,
magic can really pop. So I don't know that I'm looking for any particular signs. I to me, I'm just being really present and really listening,
yeah.
I guess.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, and to be honest, it's even more impressive because you're doing it at the sake of not being distracted by being in a room full of onlookers and people and no, I mean, I've done lots of public speaking stuff, so the ability to be so present and listen, you know what I mean, with an audience, but be so focused in on the person that you're doing that with is also seems like just a pretty unique skill. So all of this lands you in LA, and that's where, like, a pretty young, still in your career, you make a connection with the TV show, right? To start doing that version of coaching, and that's obviously I'm making an assumption, but I'm hoping I'm right that that's what really has changed a lot of the trajectory of how things have played out for you in your career. I'm wondering, so how do you make that connection through somebody, and what does that look like? How does that change things for you and what you thought maybe your plan or your future was at that time?
Well, I didn't have any plans or aims to do
Mhm,
anything particular. I just sort of woke up every day like I did when I was training. I just had something I wanted to do, a plan, a determination, and then I just woke up and did it, I guess.
mm,
And it's the same thing with music and coaching. I just kind of followed the breadcrumbs like, "Oh, there's this
mm,
breadcrumb that seems fun," and I just kept going and I didn't have any strategy towards it at all. And then, I just would go to events. It's all about people, really. And,
mhm,
people see you sing and or, you start I volunteered to do some work for some university professors and help make the course materials and people, oh, you can make course materials. It's kind of like that. Maybe I was underestimated and didn't even realize. Like, I guess being underestimated to me is very valuable. And I'm not trying to be underestimated or overestimated, but I have learned
how's
that
it how's it
it's
valuable? I'm curious
it's
about that statement.
it's valuable because you know you have no pressure upon you and you
Mm,
just can follow and do what you want to do and know what you need to do. And
mm,
that's that. So I hadn't really ever considered that somebody underestimated me or whatever. I just like it wasn't even like a concern in my head. I was just doing my thing, not worried about I can really say that. I really was not. I mean, right now with social media, I feel like it's very, very difficult to do something without the intention of
mm,
showing it or sharing it at some point,
mhm.
right? That's one like confrontation I have with social media that I haven't been able to come to peace with because my whole kind
That
of
it feels
upbringing
strictly performative and
that
premeditated?
well, I'm sure it's not, but I would say that I started to feel pressure when I think about social media, like I have to do something or show up somewhere and take a picture when normally I would just enjoy the event or just enjoy
Mhm,
people. I really am not interested in telling everybody what I'm doing, right? So this kind of mindset
mm,
and action was, I think, what got me wherever I got.
mm.
And I just went along and I met people. I didn't have an aim to get something from them. I just made friends, and it was through a friend actually who I'd made at an event who ended up being in a position to be asked, can you think of any vocal coaches? And I got mentioned, and apparently I got mentioned somewhere else, and that's how that connection happened when I went to The Voice. And I literally got a phone call out of the blue. I was very shocked about it.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it did change the trajectory. Mostly, I think, because obviously the platform, but I think because it made me realize what I loved so much, and that was that
Mm.
melding of art,
Mm.
performance, high performance, kind of put my two worlds and my two loves, actually my three loves of, like, I was always interested in education, I was
Yeah.
always interested in sport, and I was always interested in music. So it's like my three loves sort of came together with
Yeah.
this particular platform.
So what were the things about how you're involved with these aspiring artists on that kind of a show that's particularly like the way you just described resonated with, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is what I love.
Well, yeah, even more the opportunity allowed me to do workshops too. And well, I shouldn't say it allowed me to do them. It's what I ended up realizing. I was like, I wanted to do workshops.
Mm.
And it was actually, I should re-say this. Getting this opportunity on The Voice, it allowed me kind of an opportunity to see how much I love this high performance art education sort of mixed in together. And on my off time, I wanted to do more with it. So I ended up doing these workshops. And I would say that the workshops and the working with people in an improvisatory way where it's just more like you get up on stage, we feel each other out, and we try and, get a big impact in a very short period of time is also what we're doing on the show. So it's that. It's
Hmm.
partially the show, but it's mostly like just knowing that, okay, we can do a little bit of work at a really big impact. And I loved that style of working. And there's a few of us behind the scenes, and that's what we're doing. We're always just trying
Yeah.
to help the artist really just put their best foot forward, essentially. So it involves vocal arrangement and, all sorts of different things. We do have movement coaches and things like that that help make sure that the people feel comfortable on stage, and just to work with an amazing team. A team at The Voice is top notch, the best of the
Mhm.
best.
And you're mean like all throughout the team they've put together, or you mean even just your vocal team? Because there's at any given time, is it the same number of you that are all doing the same sort of role with the artist back behind the scenes?
No, actually, well, we started off with four of us, and unfortunately, our fourth, or like our one of our coaches passed away this
Mhm.
last year. Yeah, Deborah
Deborah?
Bird,
Yeah, she's
and
incredible.
she was incredible. So we've felt a real hole this last couple of seasons. But we've got Peter
Mm.
Pergolides and Trelawney Rose, and she's the head coach. And she was the one who had, mentioned my name. So I always thank her
Mm.
very greatly for being there for me like that. She's wonderful, and she leads our vocal team, and it's this vocal team that is, to me, the best of the best. I mean, I think that
Mhm.
meaning we get along, we see eye to eye, we really want the best for the performers. So essentially, we're there, and then as the competition goes on, it always ends up, with less coaches, and Trelawney is there throughout that whole thing.
Mm.
So yeah, so there's
Because
not the same
the
amount of
nature of the
people.
show, yeah, sorry. The nature of the show, right, is I think this is always interesting to me. So the first part of the chair turn, which is so specific, with this wide range of artists at different skill levels, and you're trying to either vocal arrange and you're part of helping their technique and all these different aspects for that very specific purpose. But then if they land on the show, now it's really that's where the competition really starts, right? Of the higher performance, and it's a show, so they're also, I'm sure, trying to build some version of a trajectory, right? That always feels like it's going up.
Yeah,
Okay.
and like you say, there's just different, like, kind of coaching. We're on different aspects of the show, and we don't necessarily have, it's not like our team now and we go on, and the
Yeah.
celebrity coaches, they're working with them and they are coaching them, and kind of we do kind of behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
the blind audition is a big moment of high performance because it's their first time on that stage with that pressure, and going out, it's very quiet. Nobody's saying anything. Nobody knows you yet. It's most people tell us they black out, so you're kind of trying to help them in those moments before to measure their breathing and keep their, either emotions and state high or lower that down because of the nerves.
Well, and that's interesting that you have probably that first line of contact because those people also, right, are just they literally have just come from their regular lives. I know they love to tell on these shows the backstory, right? And they will send a camera crew probably and film some backstory. So they love to build that. But the reality is that is where they just came from. And now they're in Hollywood. And now they are on a TV set where there's so many things going on and there's so many delays that might start happening and all these
Yeah.
factors that are distracting. You thought you were ready, but then it's not your time on show. Like there's these variables that go along with it just being a television show. And I assume you're like a first line of trying to keep that person ready or focused or how,
Yes.
what's that?
Basically
Is
us
that
as vocal
common?
coaches, that's what we feel like our role is. You get them
Mm,
ready, and then, you're trying to help them deliver. It's like one thing to be ready, and then to
mm,
actually deliver and execute that under, a lot of pressure is another thing.
mm,
So like you say, there's lots of things going on, lots of lights, camera, action type of a situation. Sometimes a lot of waiting, sometimes not. So
yeah.
to me, these are the details of the industry. And that goes back to that original point that I had said in the very beginning. I'd say the difference between certain like singing coaching and somebody who's working with, let's say, working singers, and you're just dealing with these aspects that you just can't know or have the knowledge that they're even there and how to deal with
Mm,
them if you're not in them. And so that's what a platform like this offers. It's like, here you go. Here's the situation. Let's see if you deal with it.
yeah. Well,
and
I
and it's
mean,
great.
yeah. So your show or that show, because you're on a lot of shows, but yeah. So in that show, we don't see you
No.
ever, right?
No.
But that specific sort of element, I think historically got really focused in on the American Idol version where they
Yeah.
have their Hollywood week and you would see them interact with vocal coaches and, the 2 in the morning tears where they put them under this incredible boot campy pressure. And the story that often gets tied along with that is like, this is the career you're possibly stepping into. So this is in a lot of ways preparing you for the pressures and all these kinds of things. So they try to focus on that. So
Yeah.
have you felt, I guess this is a step back, bigger picture question, because how many seasons have you now been able to do with The Voice? So it's a lot.
20 something. Yeah. I have
Okay,
to
it's
add
over
it up.
20, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a lot of experience seeing a lot of people. I'm very curious what you feel like some of the common threads that you start, because in any job, it's like when I've done this long enough, you stop being surprised by some things. You start to be able to categorize things just mentally, right? Subconsciously. But I'm wondering when you see people who are all in the same place of aspiring careers and they think this is the door for it. And you're seeing them in that front line of probably facing the question is like an athlete at practice when they're in the dirt, right? Of like, do I have what it takes? So what are some of the things you just feel are that you've seen that are really common that people share in those moments that and where they're coming from?
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, definitely the element of a television show is just different than anything, even if you've been on tour. We've had some people who've, been really had big careers in touring, but just
Mhm.
this film aspect is a little bit different, right? And there's a whole bunch of behind the scenes things that happen. Anybody who's an aspiring artist is, trying to, like I said, put their best foot forward and some people have a really strong belief about what they can do. Other people get shaken by being in a situation like that.
Mhm.
Some people who've got a lot of skill doubt themselves, and some people who don't have as much, they might feel really confident. So it's like this whole mix, and it's like that just in sessions too when I'm working with people. So that's a real common thing that I found just across the board. But in general, I think that when they come there, they have been casted essentially, right? They've been
Yep.
cast, I should say. They are already there for a particular reason. And so they're really just excited to be around other singers usually and just try not to get knocked off your game. That's it. Just keep doing what you do.
So I think, yeah, I think what makes that show and some other ones like it, that version of the competition different than some of the other ones, like you've worked on The Masked Singer
Yeah.
and I Can See Your Voice. And um, sorry, I just forgot the name of the country one, the more recent.
Oh, My Kind of Country, the Apple
Yeah, My Kind of
TV. Yeah.
Country show on Apple TV. That traditional singing competition with this pursuing the dream is sort of this underlying, like it's kind of the pitch of a lot of these shows, right? And watching people on their dream and an audience embracing someone that becomes their favorite is a big part of, I think, how these things are shaped, right? They want people to connect with somebody who's like
Connection. Yeah.
represent and that's representing all of us who are pouring their heart out and taking a risk to have the thing that they have always wanted and hoped for. So I've had some thoughts on this in conversations, and I think your behind the scenes perspective is interesting to me then about, in the music industry that gets looked down on, right? The whole, if I go win some big competition, I get to
Yeah.
skip about 5 steps on the ladder to having a career where everybody else has to go through some grueling circuit, right? To try to grow their career and get noticed. And as if it as if it invalidates the authenticity of whether that person should have a career or not because they skipped a bunch of steps if a TV show helped them via exposure or a contract or money or whatever it is. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that, about how it develops people and puts them into the industry for careers. What have you had thoughts about that over your time?
Yeah. I mean, definitely a long time ago, there was at least a clear ladder, like you were saying. Like there's the
Mhm,
steps. Somebody is a gatekeeper. They're going to put out a better ladder for
mhm.
you at
It's
some
a great
point,
word. Yeah.
and you can walk up a more golden plated ladder versus a bronze ladder or something. But
Mhm,
with TikTok and social media and all of these shows, there are so many different avenues, and the ladder has become a web. And the gatekeepers don't have that straight ladder that you can climb as much as before and as a whole. So I think a lot of people could be considered skipping the queue at this point, like somebody who does really well on TikTok uh, may or may not have caught the attention of a gatekeeper in the past, but they might have this little knack or ability to get people to watch uh, whatever that they're putting out. So it's kind of like the game has changed and it's become a web, I guess I would say. So, people can climb any area of the web. And I think that those are all valid and they're not for everybody. Not every aspect of all of the different
mhm.
opportunities are helpful for people, I think. They're not necessarily the best suited.
Yeah.
But I think if because I think as singers, we often think, what is the thing that's making me important? It's my singing. And we all know that there's more to it. There's like that just ability to connect. Some singers are not that great singers, but they connect so well.
Yeah.
Or they're really great musicians, or they're very good storytellers. And so there's all these other aspects, and so sometimes, like, a television show can lean on some of these other aspects a bit more and give somebody a bit of exposure with those aspects
Yeah.
and allow them to shine a little bit where other people who do well on another platform don't shine as well in there. So
Yeah.
I guess that's the way
Or
that I
or
have thought.
or some people have more perseverance. I think this is one factor we don't always see, right? Like I remember a lot of people being shocked when they found out, I think Kelly Clarkson, the first American Idol winner, and then you find out she had already been in LA shopping her demos for 3 years or something. Like I don't know the
Mm,
exacts of the story, but
mm,
it's not like she was some Kentucky girl that just showed up on the show and got discovered. The way it kind
uh,
of got sold to a lot of people, that perseverance is also one of those traits, that sometimes more perseverance with less skill still ends up puts you in the same place. You get to
oh,
the same place.
absolutely.
But your answer is fantastic, actually. Like that's a great perspective on it's almost a delicious irony that something that has like the budgets of Hollywood behind it is responsible for decentralizing gatekeepers in the industry
I
as
mean,
things
it's
were
probably a
changing.
part
It's
of
not
it,
the
right?
only one, but it's one of
Mhm.
them. I think it's interesting. We talk about the circuit, right? And yeah, I was thinking about, if you grew up in Canada, right? So the circuit was so defined, right? And I know because I was a part of
Yeah,
it, which
right.
was you get a band, you start playing shows. If you have 3 clubs in your city, then those you try to get in the door of all of them. And then you try to be able to get to the one in the next town. And then as many that were within that 8-hour drive that you could do in a day became your circuit. And then if you
Mm,
kept growing, you got across Western Canada, right? And if you could get to start to tour Canada, then you start to attract maybe agents and industry people that you need on a team and managers and publicists. And it's such a well-defined circuit and there was such a harsh authenticity requirement of everybody has to pay those dues or you're not going to get respect maybe in the
right.
industry, which is where I think this idea of winning a competition, skipping all of those steps to all of a sudden have a career doesn't make you as authentic an artist. Maybe that's what the implication is. But I think the suggestion that the part it plays in a greater thing that's happening of removing gatekeepers, that while there's all kinds of value in paying your dues and the benefits it gives you, um, every one of those steps in that circuit are held by gatekeepers that also were
Yeah,
some of the worst parts of everybody's shared story of trying to make it, right?
I
Uh,
bet. It would be interesting
I
to
think
hear, yeah.
that's interesting because I think what I wondered what your thoughts might be too is like how valid a place do singing competitions play as a new part of the circuit or in that web as you put like these are all like national global things with very large budgets and incredibly high skilled best of the best production and all the technical people behind it and studios and all the business that goes with it. But
Mhm.
at more local or regional levels, is there opportunities that maybe we're not missing where being in competitions is actually a part of development?
Well, that's interesting. I would just like to add that, of course, we've got like TikTok, and a
Yeah.
lot of people are getting signed just straight from TikTok, and they only know like, I shouldn't say they, because this is not everybody, but sometimes somebody, I've had this, come in through my door before where someone, gets a
Hmm.
label and they're like, oh, I need to sing these songs. I'm doing this big kind of show, but they haven't actually sang a set yet. So, I mean, you could say, "Oh, you're skipping your dues," but I just don't think that those are the same dues anymore. And
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think that in order to sort of be lighthearted about it, you almost have to let go of these are the steps. It's like anybody can get noticed at any time on any particular thing, and so you should really, really, really be sure about following your joy and do it, because as much as perseverance can take you somewhere, so can joy and having fun, you know? You could just have a
Hmm.
blast on the internet and you could get noticed. So, and you could end up on, a show, a, a late night show or something just the next day.
Yeah.
It's really changed. So I think you bring up a good point, and anybody who is feeling that way, I would just say really figure out what brings you joy and follow that path, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of paths now. It's like I said, a web, and there's lots of opportunity for people to maybe not get to the A-list area,
Yeah.
but to be in this other area where you're actually, have a life and a career and doing
Yeah.
well.
So more than just doing TV shows, which you've had this great opportunity to do, and I think you've had probably a really great impact in those places. And you love workshops, and we've talked about that. And you like have this incredible improvisational magic of drawing things out of people. I know you've also just worked in what you said in the industry of people who are either on tour in the moment or getting ready for recording. But you've worked with people at lots of stages, in early stages of their career, or people who
Yeah.
are full-time professionals and have a lot under their belt. I know, like, you worked with Tate McRae early, and now she's, global top female in that sort of scope of pop artist. And
Yeah.
so you've seen people move along. I'm wondering if you can differentiate for us sort of what the different sort of primary things that artists face or challenge at those stages. So if they're early, right, where they're just trying to write and sing and perform all the time to get noticed, versus now they're preparing for recordings, versus now they're a career artist. They have to tour, and a lot of people, are making their earning off of this person being on the road or something, which is a whole
Right.
version of pressure. So I'm wondering if you can sort of tell me what you see as, like, what are the main things singers are encountering and need help with at each of those stages?
Sure. So recreational singers could be any level of ability. They might be, the most amazing singer you've ever heard, or they could be somebody who's a beginner in terms of their skills. And usually you're just following, like I was saying before, you're following the joy. And so you just do what
Mhm.
you love to do. That's sort of that category. Then when you step into, hey, I want to start doing this for some money. The very first thing is obviously that people think of is just like accuracy and ability to deliver something, and have, you have to have a repertoire and you have to have your songs together. So you're getting that. Once you have that together, then you might be, well, I shouldn't say that, because now some people aren't even doing sets and shows. They're just going online, but you still have to gather some sort of material to sing, whether
Mhm.
it's on TikTok
Mhm.
or you're doing a show, etc. Right. So you're kind of focusing in on that. So a lot of people will kind of feel like they have to do certain skills at that point. And it's just more like, hey, if you are finding that you're singing your songs and they're not coming out well, then maybe you need a little bit more of that technical side of it. But essentially, when you get into the emerging artist zone, you really are trying to find your sound, trying to
Mhm.
find that authentic point. Some people have it. They open their mouth and there you go. That's what they are. That's what they do. But a lot of people have a lot of abilities. And so they're really pinpointing what where am I going to funnel my energies and my time, and how can I create a cohesive sound? And so that, I find, is a big sort of area in there. And then
Mhm.
also people, when they're getting to the latter stage of emerging artists, they start to doing more shows, and so they need more chops, they need more vocal fitness, they need the ability to sing longer and stronger. And so that element starts coming up. And then, of course, once you hit touring, obviously somebody likes what you're doing. You're going out there, you're touring, your sound maybe is clear, but now it's all about stamina, strength, ability to withstand demands. This is an area I get pulled in a lot, because people
Mhm.
haven't focused in the emerging artist stages on getting the fitness that would be required for touring, which is a
Mhm.
whole other level. And
Yeah.
And then the person who's been on, the road a long time, it's all about the soul, and making sure you don't get depleted and that you don't lose your joy and you don't lose
Mm.
hope, and you keep the spark alive. And I think in that area, it's easy to start to get vocal issues, especially because we're not excited anymore. So there's like, it's a different spot to be in. That's why I think every singer should have a non-singing hobby. 100% that they're doing all of the time as a consistent hobby, and never let your hobby go no matter how well you do in singing or music, because that is the thing in those stages that's going to fuel you and allow you to not burn out so fast.
Mm.
Yeah, that's kind of recreational. I'm just starting off to the idea of being professional, and then
Yeah.
emerging, late emerging, beginning touring, late touring.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
sort of the.
There's lots of stories. Like you hear stories of like Eddie Vedder, he won't talk to anybody. Like he won't use his voice. He won't talk to, like, no one's allowed to talk to him the whole day of his performance now. And I mean, I sort of get it with him if he's trying to preserve that growl. Like it sounds like he's destroying his voice every night to keep singing like they did in the 90s. But you know, artists who are career artists have obviously figured out some version of the discipline that they need to have to protect their tool and their instrument. That emerging artist is a huge field of people who are, on the cusp, or maybe they've been doing it for a few years. And what is the thing that most people overlook the most about their voice and what it needs to be to move to the next level, right? Like, what is the thing that most people are either hurting themselves at or just overlooking, period?
One thing is your speaking voice. If you're using your speaking voice in a way, whether it's at shows or not at shows, and it's kind of more in this vein, where it's not got that good airflow behind it, that is going to bite you in the butt. Maybe
Mm,
not in your early 20s, but a little bit in your later 20s, it's going to start biting you in your
mm,
butt. That's one. The second one is just when you're sick, when your voice isn't up to par, you push it anyways. Again, that lasts for a certain period of time, and then usually that catches up. And then I would say just overlooking the balance of rest and care and strengthening your voice, not just for one song, but for whatever demand you have. That takes some vision, because when you're on tour, you can't get those chops the few weeks leading up to tour. You have to have been working on them as you go. So I would say that. And then the final thing I would say is the hobby thing I said,
mm,
that I think everybody should have a non-music hobby to keep them fueled.
mm. So what's the worst thing when you're on tour? Is it drinking alcohol every night like you do when you're like just a young artist who gets a chance to all of a sudden go out on the road and you're with a lot of your friends every night? Is it coffee that you're trying to keep yourself up? Is it bad sleep habits, which is the other most common thing? What are generally the biggest habitual things that go along with being an artist that are actually hurting you?
Well, all those things, vaping and all this sort of stuff is hard on the voice. But I always say to myself, is it realistic to tell somebody to stop all of that? And I always think probably not. So I'm going to go with what is the best way to overcome it. And that's
Mm,
a warm down. Do a warm down. So actually, this brings me to like my whole goal in this last little while has been to create content that is
yes.
specifically required for the working singer or the emerging artist, the pro singer, which is different than just trying to sound good, get on pitch, and be accurate with your notes. It's all about maintaining your voice and having a warm down and
Mm,
knowing what to do, having the proper warm up. If you don't have a proper warm up, you're probably going to say warm ups don't work for me. That's because you don't have the right one. Because not that you have to do exercises or scales, but just to know how to ramp up your voice and then how to wind
mhm,
down your voice. So I've got my VoiceFit app that's going to be coming out in the new year. So I have been working
mm.
on it a long time. So people may
A
have heard
long
me
time.
talk about it. But like anything, it kind of went through so many iterations and learning curves that
Yeah.
it's been absolutely nuts, but it is going to be out in the spring. And that's what it is.
Mm,
It's completely dedicated to be like on your phone, all the like a toolkit for
mm,
the working singer, everything you need in order to really thrive. So
yeah.
that's something I am hoping that singers do
I
check out.
know how passionate you've been about that
Yes.
for a long time. So I'm glad that you segued into that because you've hinted at this idea of fitness and vocal fitness and all these things. And what is a warm down?
So a warm down basically takes everything you just did. Let's say you wound it all up and you were tight with either your muscles or your voice, your tongue, everything, and it just winds it
Mm,
back down so that when you go to bed, you're not going to bed with this instrument that's really tight. So it's
mm,
a series of exercises or tasks, I would say, that help to reestablish home base of airflow and breathing.
which is physically how our vocal cords are, right? Like they tighten up like strings on an instrument. Is that what you're
Well,
talking about or
more
referencing or
the
explain that?
extrinsic muscles around your vocal cords because the
Okay.
voice is located in your larynx and your larynx is designed to go up and down in a swallow for a swallow to
Hmm.
protect our airways. And it's all these extra extrinsic muscles that we use to help lengthen those vocal cords in moments. Let's say we're singing when we're not feeling the best, or maybe we're trying to hit a high note, like the strain and the putting
Yeah.
up of the neck and all of that. Those are all these extrinsic muscles that are coming to say, I'll help you hit that high note. And if you don't wind them down, there will be a point where you notice it. And it could take a long time. Some people it takes a long time, but as soon as you start feeling it, you get, voice changes, or you just not
Mm,
consistent anymore. You're like, this voice doesn't feel the same. And everyone always thinks it's a mystery. And I always say, this is not a mystery, So, implementing the warm down would be the first thing
mm.
that I would do as a practice, even if your voice is working perfectly.
Yeah. Well, this is what I love about you because you can see, I love seeing how you immediately get excited and passionate to talk
Yeah.
about it. It makes me think how, like, going all the way back again to the first year we met out at this boot camp, and you didn't have to, but you sat in on one of my social media sessions and I was talking, and then you
Yeah.
came afterwards to gently and politely ask if you could give me some tips so I don't kill my voice while I was public speaking because you heard me. It was my second one of the day and I was already losing
Tired.
shape and tired and just and tone and you're like, there's ways that you can like protect and guard that and manage that better. And I was like, it was so amazing. It was like so generous of you too. And I know you bring that passion everywhere you go when you see it. And I think what's exciting for you to put out your VoiceFit app. And I'm going to leave links all over when I put this out and everything so that people will be able to make sure they stay connected to where you are and be able to find this app. And I think it's exciting that you'll be able to effectively reach hopefully more people with all these things
Yeah.
that we talked about and what you're doing and how important the fitness and all these different parts are. I know you love so many aspects of what you get to do, but your ability, like the way you could just articulate, you know, anatomically what is going on as easily as you talked about, intuitively and emotively what people are going through at different stages of their career, uh, is a real special gift. I think it's great to be able to hear and to see. Um, I want to ask you some specific questions that are
Okay.
just almost like rapid fires too, because I'm also want to be cognizant of time. We've been talking for a while. So, but I'm very interested, and maybe you don't want to answer. I don't think it's any technical violation, but you've been able to rub shoulders with a bunch of celebrities, obviously, through a lot of your different shows. So, is there people that stood out to you for different aspects? Like who, like on The Masked Singer, where people with maybe zero singing background in all
Right.
various degrees that you get to help and be part of, and then see, you get to see the normalcy of who that person is, apart from celebrity, right? As someone gets humbled in their attempt to learn how to do this well.
Sure.
Is there people that have stood out to you? I'm curious, like, is there people that you've just been like, "Oh, that's a that's an interesting or special person to be able to get to know.
I will answer the question, but I really have enjoyed everyone kind of brings something really different. But one
Mm.
person I really, really enjoyed meeting, and there was many, but Tony Hawk. I
Mm.
loved working with him. He was a kind, gentle guy. He worked really hard, and it was just like seeing somebody who, you know, physically, when he was doing all of his skateboarding, I mean, he just gets on a skateboard, falls, tries again, do this. You just keep going. Doesn't matter. It's not
Mm.
personal. And it was really cool to see how he was doing music and singing, because if you didn't do something well, he never took it personally. And
Mhm.
that's one thing that singers tend to,
Mm.
personalize, like, oh, I went flat. Oh, I'm a bad blah, blah, blah. But like watching Tony do it, it just was just like, keep going. And I just felt so inspired to be like, what are all the obstacles I have in my head?
Yeah.
And do they need to be there? So, so many people, but I could go
Yeah.
on, but Tony.
Oh, that's cool. Is there new shows or new ideas that have come up for you from doing these kinds of things that you feel like you've had ideas about things that could work or
Oh,
be
yes.
interesting on TV?
I have definitely put my fair share of formats together, to be truthful. Lots of things, like
That's
what
cool.
would I be interested in seeing? I've put them together, and there was a point when I was like, I'm going to pursue these, but I think I just kind of gotten passionate about. I really want to put my content out. It's
Mhm.
kind of like a little bit of a legacy for me to put it out and have something that I can,
Yeah.
help more people with, and I can see one on one.
Mhm. That's great. I mean, you have impacted a lot of people, and I think it's great that you have an opportunity to use technology for what it's there for, right? To be able to
Hmm.
reach more people. Okay, so I knew that we were going to talk. Strange story. I'll connect some dots. I discovered on Spotify that, you could click on, if you go to the song credits and then the songwriters are there, and some of them have a little arrow now beside their name. And now it takes
Yeah.
you to like a web page that shows all the songs that they have credits for
Oh, I didn't
in
know
the
that.
ranking order of how many streams they have. So I discovered it because I wanted to see Aaron Dessner, one of the brothers in The National, who basically co-produced and co-wrote Folklore with Taylor Swift, right, during the pandemic, and now has stayed sort of a part of
Mm.
her songwriting team sometimes. But then I was listening to a podcast with Gracie Abrams, and he was involved in producing. And then I realized a song credit. So the joke with my friends is he must be 10x richer than all of his other band members in the National now because of that opportunity. Because we're talking 1.5 billion streams, right, for some of these
Well,
songs,
yeah.
right? But it's more than that. But then, so I said it to another friend who said, and it was interesting. He's like, I wonder what Sia and her page looks like because of her career of writing
Mm.
for so many different people. So I went, and yeah, she's got songwriting credits for some huge artists, not just herself, besides her own
Right.
track, right? That are in the millions and a billion like number type thing. It's ridiculous numbers for
Wow.
streams on Spotify. But that made I'm like, I haven't listened to some Sia songs for a while. Then I listened to Chandelier, and I'm like, is this the best vocal take I've ever heard in my life? And not just because she's technically a
It's
great singer,
raw.
but it's so raw and
Mm.
she lets it break up. So
Yeah.
you feel it. And I've heard a lot of people try that song. Nothing feels like, especially if you have it loud or the headphones on and you hear what she's allowing her voice to do. So I'm curious what to you are songs you can pull that you feel like these are some of the best vocal takes I've ever heard for various reasons. Is that easy to
Oh
accent
my
in the moment?
goodness. I'm just trying to think. Currently, I work so much with people on their original music, right? Sometimes
Mm.
not even released and things like that. So let me just give myself a thought. I am always impressed, especially with live vocals. I love Leanne Rhymes. I really do.
Mm.
She really has a beautiful command of her voice, and she's very emotional and vulnerable. Her song Spaceship, I really love that song. It's very
Mm.
beautiful. Um, Let me think. I love Kimbra, actually. Have you
Oh,
ever listened
okay.
to Kimbra?
Yeah, I know who that is. Yeah.
She lets it go. Like she's
Mm.
painting with her voice so amazingly. And she's very can improv. She can go quiet. This is the thing about vocal fitness. Vocal fitness does not mean a straight cookie cutter singing.
Mhm.
It just means a fit voice is one that allows you to express yourself freely in the moment without hesitation.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you have a pristine vocal that's not broken up. Like you want to get to that spot where it's really raw, like Sia. But I think those two people really stand out.
Mm.
I'm sure I'll think of many after.
Oh, of course, but absolutely. I love the way you just phrased that, by the way, about because I feel like this is my thoughts a lot about artistry, period, about what you'd have to do to be prepared for the moment, right? The things that we do
Mhm.
that we often just see or experience artistry in those moments. If they make us feel something, right? If it impacts us, if
Right.
it's memorable in some way, it's not even about what it was that was memorable. It just was memorable.
Right.
We have no vision or input into knowing why they're prepared in the moment, right? Why somebody can just step up and do the thing they do in the moment. Is it because they're special or because they're prepared? And I love how so much of your talk is about the preparation fact, right?
Yeah. When you need it, do it. If you don't need it, I don't think anyone has to like beat themselves over the head to do harder things if
Yeah.
things are easy for them. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's
So
that's
what
how you get there.
so is the voice fit, is this sort of the focus of Tamara Beatty's life at the moment? Like
Yes.
2025 is finally the year, and what
Yes.
is it, like a giant exhale is coming on the other side of the release of that app, or do you sort of foresee some plan? Like what do you see as like what's next for you with that?
I feel like it will be a bit of an exhale to finally just have it there to say I'm doing it and to say if you like to see it, you can. That will be great. The other side of it is just like an artist where you put out something and now you're like, oh well, how do I got people know about it?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I am gonna let it just be there. Like I think I'm don't know how I'm going to pitch it or put it out there. But I know that next part, I don't know if I'll exhale about that, but I think that
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just want to it's like as an artist myself, that's my piece of art that I'm trying to put
Yeah.
out, just like somebody's album, you're trying to put that
Yeah.
out there. So I think it will be an exhale. And yeah, I'm going to go
Mm.
back and do some workshops. I'm really missing just being with people and doing what I love to do. I think it's really important as a singer to know, like, what is it that you do that's easy for you and you love? And that
Mhm.
is what it is for me, is just standing
Mm.
in front of people in a big room and being in the moment. And that's it. I just love that. So that's what I think
Yeah.
2025 will have.
That's exciting. I love hearing that. I mean, I having the good fortune I've had to be in so many rooms with artists expressing themselves or doing their art or what in whatever version, whether it's like super performative or whether it's just informal. We use this word in the industry called it, right? Where they have the it factor. I guess I've always felt like I have a strong sense of when I think I know what that is or I see it, right? I
Mm-hmm.
see it in someone else.
Right.
Um, I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning. Is that I hope every aspiring artist or singer or even hobbyist, whatever version, would be able to access your app and get your app because I think that you have like this it factor in your field, for sure. Like it's been magic everywhere I've seen it, um, and I know that's your gift in seeing that in other people. Um, and I've probably already said 20 times, I'll make it 21. I see it in you all the time, wherever you are too. So
Thank you.
I super appreciate you taking the time to be here and talk with me and just get a sense of your career and how you got to where you were and the things that make it special and the things you're passionate about. I think so many people have so many things they could learn from every little nuance of the things that you can talk about that you've seen and what is
Thank
important.
you.
So I appreciate the time and talking so openly.
I appreciate you as well. And thank you for all you do for artists. Again, I don't think people realize how much you're doing to champion them, to help bolster them, to kind of bring out your artistry in the form of all, like not just music, but your design and your background working, in all of these so many different areas on programs and juring and just so many areas. You have been a champion for artists because you are one yourself. So thank you.
Oh, so sweet of you. I appreciate you saying that, Tamara. Yeah, so we're 10 years into friendship, and I'm looking forward to having another good 10 years of friendship and seeing where we land when we
I
get
think
there.
so. Yeah, that'll be great. And we definitely just actually need to see each other.
We do. I was reminiscing with my daughter about 2016 when you invited us down to Universal Studios and to be on a taping of a show of The Voice and see how it all happens. So
Yeah.
that's a special memory for us, absolutely, which I'm always eternally grateful for that her and I have that. So I loved it, and I look forward to a chance when we get to hang out again. So
Me
yeah.
too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All the best to you, and look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hey, I'm Alexi. Stick around for post fame with me and my dad.
I know, always doing it for me, episode 3, but I wanted to start right off the bat about music, because remember at the start, weeks ago when we were talking about music at the gym and I was playing the same song over and over. So
Yes.
I am at the place where I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm still playing the same song over and over. And I remember you used to talk about like you would play songs on repeat, right? Do you remember
Yes.
you telling me you used to play songs and you'd have some artists you would joke about you play on repeat and repeat? And I've never done that in
Yeah.
my whole, like I've never played repeat. Well, the song is Old Tape. It's by Lucius featuring Adam Grandiciel of The War on Drugs. And I've been playing this, like, I've played it back to back. I've never done that in my whole life that I've just play and I wouldn't stop it. I would like physically go way out of my way to stop a song from playing twice in a row. But
Yeah.
that one is still going for me. So I had to let you know that that's, I feel
Because
like
my dirty secret of my repeating.
the backstory for me in that song, right, is that that it goes along with some of my biggest regrets. So they have been at Edmonton's Folk Fest when we were here. I did not watch their performance, and I don't even remember why. I knew that they had sang backups previous for the War on Drugs, who very
Mm-hmm.
publicly has been one of my top 3 bands for like the
Oh yeah.
last 7, 8, 10 years of my life. And I did not watch them at Folk Fest that year. And then most recently, when I went on a boys' trip to Vancouver last fall to
Mm-hmm.
watch the tour of the National and the War on Drugs, 2 of my top 3 of
Yeah.
the last 10 years. So a complete ecstatic experience for me. Lucius was the opener, the third, and we went for supper instead
That's the
of
one you missed.
that's the one I missed again because we were all like, it's Lucius. I
Oh.
didn't. And then it was afterwards that a friend was like, have you heard this song by Lucius? And that was towards the end of 2024.
Mhm.
And I listened to it and
Man.
I'm so filled with regrets. And I've been on almost a 2-month bender of regret listening to that song on
No.
repeat. So that doesn't happen very often in my life. So I hope my 2025 thing needs to be to not pass anything off that comes across. If it crossed my path, it crossed it for a reason. I don't really believe that stuff, but I'm gonna believe it in 2025, so I don't do that to myself
No,
again.
it's if there's opportunity for live music in your life, you take it.
Right. Well,
Period. In the story.
yeah. I also got ridiculed recently. I think I told you about how I was setting dollar limits on going to see Winnetka Bowling League
Yes.
open for Mother because I didn't want to pay the ticket price to primarily see them from way up high.
Yeah.
It's like total, I don't know. I got to get over it. Like the prices change. It's not 1996 anymore. I got
This
to
is
be
true.
better and not miss so many live performances. So
Yeah, I think that could be a regret of yours.
I'll take that cue from you. Is there any music so far? Like we're a month into 2025. Are
Yeah.
there things that are on repeat for you yet, or no?
On repeat, I there is an artist. I'll pull him up because I he came into one of my just like I'll make a playlist and I'll just listen to that playlist for like an extended amount of time and
Hmm.
like solely that playlist. And that's
Hmm.
I think also where my repeat habits come in is
Hmm.
there. But he snuck into one of those playlists and then I listened when I studied and then also in transit and it ended up just being like I kept hearing
Stuck
a
in,
song.
like you didn't put it there, or that,
No, like
little thing that the AI
it
thing that
recommends
Spotify tries to
songs
do now?
or
Yeah.
like I'll have like how Spotify makes like daily mixes or like
Yeah.
playlists even like all of those. It must have just been in one of those and I just like passively add songs all the time. I just like I'll hear a song and it's like my brain will just like filter it and like file sort it into like what
Makes
playlist of
sense.
mine it goes into. I'll
Okay,
pull them up.
name the artist and song. I gotta know.
I am pulling it up, but I heard one song and I played it so much that like my partner was like, "You have listened to the song like 30 times while I've been here." And I'm like, I keep queuing it. And then I went into his other stuff and it was just like one by one. I was like, oh, so it's all of his songs. It's Ethan Regan.
Ethan Regan. Okay.
Yeah. Like he doesn't have that much out. And I don't even know how to describe what genre he would even fall into remotely.
Well, we'll have to go find out. But that's great because
But
there's, like, again, I haven't heard that name, has not
yeah.
into my stuff yet at all.
Yeah. Like, do
So,
you know Racoma? Like, you know the
but
band
what?
Racoma? Racoma? That like there's a
No,
song that
don't
Kale sings.
embarrass me right on my own podcast that I haven't heard of
You
two
you
artists
would.
in
You
a
would.
row. Like
You
I've
would.
heard them, but I don't know who it is.
Like country, get on. Like if I played it, you'd be like, yes, because Kale and I played it and we've talked about it. But
Okay,
um I think I was playing their like radio, like songs like theirs, and he came up.
maybe.
Um
Okay.
yeah, I don't know. I haven't been a artist repeater in a little while, and I keep shuffling him.
Well, I'm gonna go find both of those, and then I'm gonna put them on our Almost Famous Enough
Yes.
playlist on Spotify. Sound like a
Yeah.
plan?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
I
a
love
good
that.
plan.
See, look at here we are, two new. I'm not that
True
embarrassed.
new.
Two new ones for us. Okay, this is episode 3, Alexi and Tamara Beatty, which is, I think,
Yes.
especially fun for you and I because um, you and
The
I
first time
got
I
to
know them.
yeah, like you know her personally because
Yeah.
Tamara is obviously been a voice coach in the backgrounds of the TV show The Voice for over 20 seasons. I think over 22
Yeah.
seasons. She couldn't remember the exact number during the podcast, right? And
A
um,
lot.
we made mention of the fact that she generously invited me to bring you down and
Mhm.
took her up on it. And she got us into the taping, which isn't, a super easy thing to do. It's not like just,
No.
you have a friend here in Edmonton who's doing a show or works at the club and they're like, yeah, I'll
Yeah.
put you on the list or whatever. Like it's a little more tricky. And I just thought it would be fun to remember some of those things. Like when I say it was a little bit tricky, do you remember It was at Universal Studios, so we had to stay
Getting
at a
up there
hotel. We had to get up super early in the morning,
and
right?
like
And get a
go.
shuttle up to, and it was just a parkade. Do you remember that? It was just,
No, but it wasn't even just a parkade. We had to get a shuttle and we had to walk through so many areas of Universal, get to the back parkade, and then like go into the
and go
elevator
to the
and go
what?
all the way up.
Was it all the way up or was it a particular floor? And when you
No, it
walked
was a
out, there's
particular
no
floor.
cars and just two dudes and just two dudes at a table at the other side of the parkade with a bunch of papers.
I was like, this is out of Law and Order. We're about to
It
get
really,
napped and
it really
taken.
seemed, yeah, it was very sus. It
Yeah.
seemed very sus. But we walk up, our names were on the list. I had that terrible moment where I'm like, what if our names are not on this list? And then we've done all of this. But and then we go out and then you sit in a big line for like a
Yeah.
long time in the hot sun. And then eventually they get you up into buses and then transport us
Hmm.
all. And then you get in another line outside of the studio for a long time.
Yeah.
And then they shuffled us in. It's a long
Yeah.
day. Like when they say and you see the behind the scenes of TV,
It's a
it's a very
long
long day
day.
of sitting there. But eventually we got in and then you sit there and then you see what
Yeah.
actually happens. And the most of our time was spent with the guys who just try to tell the crowd how to act and
I
react.
was
And
gonna say they have the big like sign that are like clap.
yeah,
And
because
I'm like,
most
yes.
of the time is since spent sitting there between when someone's actually singing. So we were for what would be
Yes.
called, I don't even know, I can't remember. I don't think it was even a full day of auditions. I think they do that twice in the day.
No,
Like,
I think we saw like 4.
no, we saw more, but the catch is that um, well, I can't remember exactly how, I can't remember. So I'm not going to say because I'll say the wrong thing, but I think we assumed there would be more. That's for
Hmm.
sure. There was a lot more no's than yeses. And Tamara told us afterwards that's actually not
Yeah.
usually what happens at a taping. It's usually a little more even when you're watching a taping. But it was Alicia Keys and Miley Cyrus were both
Right.
that year, which I was pretty excited
Talked
about.
about.
Cool. So yeah, I just remember that was pretty
It was very
fun.
fun.
So we had a great time. And then we also
Yeah.
got to walk the strip together, uh,
Hmm.
some shopping, and meet your cousin Britt, who worked
Yeah.
at Mount, and she gave us a tour of the Paramount Studios
Yeah,
as
I got
well.
to see some studio
Paramount
sets.
Day. So what a great trip!
Yeah.
Thanks to Tamara Beatty, our guest. So
Yeah.
that was a great memory. You got to listen to the episode. I had a
Hmm.
lot of fun with her. I mean, we're choosing not to do video in this first season while we
Yes.
figure things out, which is in a sense too bad because I would have just loved for people to see she just had a big smile on the whole time in our
Yeah.
conversation and lots of laughter. And she's just a
Oh,
pleasure.
she's so lovely. Yeah. She's just great.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
was really great. Was there any particular parts? I know that sometimes you like to take notes and tell me some things that stood out
Yeah.
afterwards about
I
the
think
episode.
I think what we were talking about in the car earlier is like we were talking about I was thinking about it and then we were chatting about it after our work today. And then I was just thinking about it after about how like atrociously humble she is. Like
That's
the
great.
whole episode.
Atrociously,
Humble. Like she's so
oh,
humble.
humble she is. Oh, of course.
Like
Yeah.
the whole I mean, and it's like when you told me she was gonna be a guest, I like, thought about who she was and then like obviously like went to her Instagram and was just like checking her out as you do. But it's just like the whole episode, she would like talk about herself and her journey, but it was never like, oh, I did all of these things and it led me to this point,
Mm,
and like look how great this point is. It was like, oh, I did all these things that led me to like this point, A, B, C, and it was like, yeah, like I feel really great about these, and like this is what that was about. And then it
yeah.
was like ended, and there was never the and that like humble break or just like that outward break that she could easily have. And there's so much I think if like
Yeah.
I mean if anyone deep dives her,
He's never had that. You're totally right.
yeah, which I just think is like
Which I
I don't
guess,
know the word for it, like impressive maybe, like it's
Well, I think it's
surprising.
real associative to two things I was trying to point out. And I told you already, I felt like I did terribly, but I guess that's now for other people to judge. But two things I was trying to point out. One was this unassumingness that she has that you're sort of
Mhm.
identifying. It came out in two places that are remarkable for me. One is just when I've seen her live in essentially like improv settings, right? That
Yeah.
she can meet somebody she doesn't know anything about their life or their background, and in moments on the stage, she knows how to draw out their best version of themselves, like in
Yeah.
moments, and it's literally like awe-inspiring. It's
Yeah.
if you're the type who watches those shows and gets emotional when people tell their backstory, and then all of a sudden they belt out this song that just absolutely
Mhm.
moves you at the same time, it gets deeper because you see what's happening in a larger context. So those
Yeah.
moments, and yet she's just so uninspiring, as if she didn't even have a perfect explanation about how she's able to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think the other uninspiring thing that I maybe fumbled a little bit was how how absolutely her original presentation of herself, it would be like if all you've known some big pop star. I know you can name any big one, maybe somebody who's more glammy, right? So if
Mhm.
you've been following like Gracie Abrams around for a long time and sort of seen sort of her transformation rise, all of the things maybe over the last year and a half, right?
Yeah.
But then but you only knew the name. Do you know what I mean? Like you didn't really see all this stuff. So you just knew the name. You knew this person was this thing, and then
Yeah.
you met her, and she was probably just wearing like not name brand sweatpants and something, and hadn't done her makeup, and you wouldn't there would be a disconnect, right? That unassuming, she's not
Yeah.
trying to impress you, she's not trying to be anything. You can't connect the dots between the only things you know about her and that
Mhm.
a terrible example I'm trying to make, but that's what happened with me. And I was trying to illustrate how there's also this unfortunate version of sexism where we put way too much weight on appearances, often for women when we meet
Yeah.
them. And I fell trapped to it like a lot of people do. But she is such a force and so powerful and so,
Mhm.
you said, yet humble and unassuming, that it gave it even more weight, even more power
Yeah.
in that moment. Yeah.
'Cause
But
even if she was someone who was like, I don't know, like dolled up, glammed up, like everything, you know what I mean? Like even if she was like an assuming person, like it wouldn't diminish the fact that her like achievements are so resounding. But then you add
absolutely.
the fact that she's so like humble and like, for you at least was like unassuming at first, then it just adds that other factor and you're just like, "Oh," like, yeah, I think it's crazy. But I think it also speaks to character, like, just shows how, like, great she is.
Yeah, she does. She's fantastic, and she has an incredible gift. And I think it's really cool the opportunities she's had and been able to follow to develop that gift. So I was really
Mhm.
happy she was able to share a bunch of that stuff, and sort of sometimes a little practical stuff. I really loved. Uh,
Yeah.
People don't get to see, but she really lit up when she started being able to talk about how she helps people actually, like in more practical,
Mhm.
which is just really where she starts to shine.
Yeah.
It has so much insight again about the business and about people's
Well, and
voices.
it's so much, like, behind the scenes, like, I feel like there's so much, like, like, every single pop star or singer-songwriter, like, anyone in the industry who's producing music and putting out music, like, likely has or has had, like, a vocal coach,
They
but
all
it's just
do.
something you don't even think about, right? Like, it's
Yeah,
interesting to,
not
like,
even.
get to hear about.
Yeah, and not even like you're right, has a vocal coach, but the other pieces we didn't even get into with her very much, and she doesn't like to talk about it because it's like name dropping. Going back to this
Mhm.
humility, she often won't talk about name dropping, though I know the names of people that she Well, I mean, one that's well known is people know she worked a lot with Tate McRae before she
Yeah.
up, but she's been brought in by major labels to do work, and it's called vocal arrangement. I don't think a lot of people know that that happens. Like when a singer like Tate McRae is writing the songs and then going to the studio, they're actually often working with a vocal arranger also. So it's not
Mhm.
just them singing the way that they feel in their heart they need to sing. They're actually shaping the
Yeah.
vocals song very particularly, and just the same way you would write an arrangement for the music and all the different parts, they're doing the same
Yeah.
thing. And that's a very specific thing. And she's getting called on like emergency for tour
Mm.
related reasons, like artists that are on tour and they start to lose their voice and they're freaking out
Mm.
and things like that. She's done a lot of work for some very well-known names to all of a sudden kind of last minute come in and help them
Yeah.
work through their issues and recover their voice, um, which is also goes back to the magic of it all. So, but
Yeah.
knows how to do that and how to help. So those are all I loved having her on because it's just a side. I don't think a lot of people get to see, right, about this
It's
thing.
like, yeah, it's like she's in like a position. It's like it's I don't know. I thought it also just played into the name. It's like the almost famous enough. It's like, she's not doing it to be famous, and her job doesn't come with fame, but she's like at the like level of the industry that's like famous level. You know what I mean? Like there's like
Yeah,
singer songwriters, and then you hit a point and you're like famous. I feel like in that job, it's like she's hit the point where she's like working at such a high level and operating at such a high level that she's like
yeah,
at the famous point, but it's like that kind of work doesn't get, publicity and like
it's
fame in the same way.
exactly. Or the fact that she's an incredible singer by her own right,
Herself.
obviously put in all the work to learn everything that it takes to be a great singer,
Mhm.
to have find that her real passion is everything she can do in relation to this and helping other people. Um,
Mhm.
rather than sort of play that game of trying, just to create her own career or sell records or whatever that is. So
Yeah.
all those things were pretty refreshing and pretty great to listen to. So I'm really happy with how that turned out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
Very good. That is
Okay.
all.
Okay. Well, I look forward to getting this out and getting on to the next ones. We have a couple fun ones.
Yeah, we get to
You,
talk soon.
ones coming up. So
Mhm.
get to keep talking, even though
Yay.
we do talk in our real life, just in case
We do
anyone.
talk every day, don't worry about it, it's okay. Star
Okay.
Carol.
Thank you. Thanks for your
Yeah.
time tonight.
Yeah, I'll play you some good music tomorrow morning.
I appreciate it. Cue it up. We'll be on our way to the gym
Yes.
right now.
Okay, bye-bye.
Hey, bye bye. Love you.
Love you too.